Everyone this evening here to the Cadillac Planning Commission here for October 27th, 2014. If you have a cell phone, if you'd be kind enough to turn it off so it doesn't goof up the videoing that Judd does. And then if everyone would join us for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please, Mr. Adams.
Here. Filkins.
Here.
Champlin. Randy will be absent tonight. Van Lente.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Schechtel.
Here.
Gregg.
Here.
Fent.
Here.
Putman.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you. Item 1 this evening is approval of the agenda actually for this evening. Everyone's had a chance, but I think Mr. Adams is going to add something on us.
Right, we need to, with your approval, under new business, we need to add 5B, which is the consideration of approving a new sign for the library here in Cadillac.
Do we need to vote on that, sir?
I think, yeah, we should have a motion to approve the amended agenda.
motion to add
5B library sign.
I'll second it. Mr. Smith and Mr. Fent?
Yes.
Okay, motion by Smith, supported by Fent to approve tonight's agenda with the addition of 5B, which is the consideration of the library sign.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Gregg?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schechtel?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Fent?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Filkins?
Yes.
And Putman?
Yes. Perfect. Next, any public comment this evening? Preferably something not on our agenda this evening. But if you must, you must. That's fine. Okay. Everybody's good. Perfect. Okay. Next, I need an approval for the September 22nd, 2014 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for September 22nd.
Second. Mr. Gregg, second. Roll.
Okay, motion by Filkins, supported by Gregg, to approve the minutes of 9/22/14 as presented. Fent?
Yes.
Filkins?
Yes.
Schechtel?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Gregg?
Yes.
And Putman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next this evening, we have a public hearing. We're having a public hearing here to consider a request from the Remir, hopefully I didn't kill that, Real Estate Investments LLC, located at 5959 Lawndale, Ludington, Michigan, 49431, for a rezoning of a parcel of land with tax ID number 10-107-00-002-00, wow, that's fun, located on the east side of Mitchell Street, between the U.S. Forest Service office at 1755 South Mitchell Street and High Point Cadillac dealership at 7555 U.S. 131 business. The request is to rezone the parcel from TS1 Tourist Service, 1 district, to B3 General Business District. For everyone here that support document 4A, and I'm sure Mr. Adams has stuff on the monitors. Wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we do have a representative of the applicant tonight, Dean DeKiger from the DK Design Group, so most likely Dean, and maybe others, will have some comments once I'm finished.
Okay.
Okay, just as you know, you all have a staff report. You received a staff report. I'm not going to go through all of the elements of that staff report, but just to summarize it through the PowerPoint presentation for the benefit of the commission and the audience. And if you have any questions afterwards, you feel free to ask, or as we're going through here. The applicant is the Reamer Real Estate Investment LLC. As indicated, they're located in Ludington, Michigan, at least the corporate office. The applicant's representative is Dean DeKruiger from the DK Design Group. Dean is the project architect, and they're located here in Cadillac. As indicated by the chair, the parcel fronts Mitchell Street, the east side. It's directly south of the site, which is occupied by the U.S. Forest Service building, and directly north of the High Point GMC Cadillac Automotive Center. So the site itself's in the city, obviously, and you'll see a area a little bit later. The properties just south of the site are located in Clam Lake Township, and the properties directly west of the site are also located in Clam Lake Township. So the site essentially abuts the city on two sides and the township on two sides, which is really not a big deal, but does have an impact. Just how well you can see this, but real quickly again, here's the Forest Service, Mitchell Street, the Forest Service building, the automotive retail facilities, this Vandry's Furniture, just to acquaint you, and we're dealing with this parcel right here. The applicant actually owns this property here as well, but we're only dealing with this little over 8 acres, right abutting Mitchell Street. The request is to rezone the site from Tourist Service 1 to the B3 General Business. Both of those classifications, both the existing as well as the proposed, are commercial classification. The biggest difference is that the TS1 is pretty much oriented to uses that are heavily oriented to tourists. As you'll see in a few seconds here, the applicant wishes to put in a medical office facility on a portion of this site. And that particular use is not listed or mentioned in the TS1 district. Therefore, if it's not listed either by right or with special approval, it's not permitted. And so that really triggered the rezoning. Generally speaking, the vast majority of TS districts actually are located in the Cadillac West area, around the hotels, motels, and other recreational types of activities. And as mentioned, the B3 district, it is our broadest, provides for the widest range of commercial uses as well as tourism uses. So if it were to get rezoned to B3, it doesn't mean we're going to negate the possibility of like a hotel or something here, because they would be permitted under the B3 zone district. So this is just a rendering. I'm not going to suggest that it's exactly going to look like this. Dean was kind enough, Dean DeKruiger from DK, to give me this. Just a representing the planned medical office. There may be some modifications or changes, but just gives you an idea of the type of quality of development that's being proposed for the site. Real quickly, some site character information. There's 750 feet of frontage on Mitchell Street, almost 500 feet deep. It's got about 8.5 acres as mentioned. This particular project, the medical office, will occupy about a third of the site. The third would be towards the north. So 2/3 of the site will remain available for additional forms of commercial development, whether it stays the same or is rezoned. It does have access to public water and sanitary sewer. Water runs to the site. Sanitary sewer is just a little bit north, but it's accessible. And I did talk with the Director of Utilities, and there doesn't appear to be any issues with respect to accessing those utilities. Mitchell Street here is 5-lane. There's 4 travel lanes and a center left turn lane. Speed limits are 45 miles per hour. And in this particular location, based on the information provided by MDOT, about 7,100 cars travel back and forth daily on a 24-hour basis. Obviously, during holiday periods and so forth, the traffic is higher, but generally speaking, the average daily traffic is 7,100 vehicles. The Mitchell Street Mackinac Trail intersection, and you'll see a map again in a second, is about 200 feet to the south. It's a signalized intersection. And then the site is relatively close also to the various on-ramps and off-ramps from the US 131 freeway. About a half a mile we find to the south, we find the northbound ramp from Mitchell Street to the freeway, southbound. And in a little less than a mile, we find another ramp that comes off the freeway, and those provide access to this site, Mitchell Street, the site in downtown Cadillac. So there are freeway interchanges that are relatively close. Whoops. And we need to go forward, not backwards. The abutting land uses, to the north is the U.S. Forest Service. As I mentioned, to the east, the property is undeveloped. It's owned by the applicant. To the directly south is the High Point GMC, the Automotive Retail and Service Center, and to the west is Mitchell Street, and then west of Mitchell is property that's owned by the McGuire's Resort Complex. Not developed at that location, but it is owned by the resort. In terms of other nearby uses, north of the Forest Service is Maple Hill Cemetery, which is owned by the city. To the northwest of that, you have kind of a combination of mixed uses. You have a tire retailer, and they also do installation of tires as well as minor vehicle repair. You have an office, you have a restaurant, a hotel, so it's a mix of uses. There's also a vacant commercial structure. It used to be a glass retail facility. To the southwest, which would be in the township, you have office and hotel facilities, a lot of medical offices. To the south, south of High Point, you have Van Drees, which is a furniture, home furnishings. You have the Michigan State Police Post and the office of MDOT. And to the east, east of the property that's owned by the applicant, you have some resource extraction that's going on, sand, gravel mining, and so forth, as well as some fill operations. So, and it's really kind of a broad mix of uses in the neighborhood, so to speak. Again, I mentioned the differentiation. Here again, the site between the U.S. Forest Service and High Point. The red or the dashed line, anything to the west or to the south is in Clam Lake Township. And Clam Lake Township, by the way, is governed by the county zoning ordinance. And then to the north and east of that line, that's all within the city of Cadillac. You can see the Maple Hill Cemetery, again, the Forest Service facility. Here's a vacant site right here. Try to move this along. Area zoning, again, it's really a mix in this area, and part of that has to do with the fact that not all of it is in the city. So we did look at how the properties were zoned in the township as well. It's tourist service to the north, which essentially is the Forest Service building. Multiple family residential to the east, commercial to the south, and to the west you have a mix of tourist service, resort residential, and office service. So that's the reason for the wide range of uses that you find in this area, is because there is a fairly significant mix of zone district classifications. In terms of the site itself, the site has remained undeveloped as presently zoned. It's been undeveloped for a number of years. Although it's been marketed off and on, generally on, for a number of years, but for various reasons is not sold until recently, with the applicant having purchased the property. As mentioned, the surrounding zone district classifications provide for a mix of uses ranging from really it's high-density residential to general commercial. And then the uses directly to the south, which would really be very consistent with the B3, are the automobile dealership and the home furnishings that I mentioned. Those would be found in our B3 zone district. The planned office development, the one that's being proposed, is consistent with the office use to the north, so there is a continuation of that as well. The city master plan depicts the site as general commercial, so it's consistent with the master plan. The site was zoned TS1, I'm not sure how long prior to the US 131 freeway, but that likely had some impact or some effect on this particular site in terms of its development. The freeway did result in modifications and the various intersections leading into the city and the greater Cadillac area. It did result in modifications to travel patterns. It impacted market factors affecting a site like this. The freeway and the new interchanges provided greater options for the placement of various land uses that are dependent on tourism. Boone Road, for example, really started to develop more significantly after the freeway came into being. So that probably had some impact on this particular piece of property. If I can find my... Okay. As required by law, we notified property owners and residents within 300 feet of site all the way around of the rezoning application, placed notice of the application, the hearing in the Cadillac News, and we do have the great reporter here tonight, Rick. I had to say that, Rick, come on. Seldom do we have Rick to our meetings, that's why. Got to really put him on the line. It's on TV now, too, Rick, so, a copy of the notice and application were placed on file right here at the city offices for public review. I don't think anybody came in and looked at it, but nonetheless. And those notices were made not less than 15 days as required by law prior to this hearing date. We did receive one inquiry from the agent of the company that owns the U.S. Forest Service site and building. That was more, they were curious, just, what was going on, what was happening, and so forth. But I never received anything, nothing received either for or against, or no other communication. So we haven't received anything, basically. I won't go through this particular slide because I'm going to address it in a second, but the zoning ordinance sets up a series of criteria that we use in terms of classifying a piece of property relative to whether it's being zoned initially or being rezoned. And in addition to these 4 criteria, there are some other elements that we can look at, but we're going to go through these 4 criteria real quickly again and cover them, so there's no need for me to address it right here. The first one is, this is the B3 classification that's being requested. Is it compatible, the range of uses provided by that zone district, is it compatible with surrounding land uses and the surrounding zone districts? And as I mentioned earlier, the B3 classification, it does provide for the broadest range of commercial uses, offices, retail, eateries, you name it, and it's pretty much provided for in the B3. And staff's opinion that the range of uses provided for by the district, it is generally consistent with surrounding zoning and existing land use patterns. There is not a specific type of land use that surrounds this site or that is in the general neighborhood area. It's not all hotels, for example. It's not all offices. It's not all retail. It's really a combination of all of those with some land left also to be developed. So generally speaking, we felt that that particular standard had been met. I've already mentioned this when the standard addresses or discusses whether or not the rezoning is consistent with the city master plan, and the plan does show the site that we're talking about as general commercial, so there's consistency there as well. The third standard is whether or not the site has access or will have access to municipal infrastructure, facilities, and services. And as I mentioned earlier, there are existing public facilities, and based on information provided by the city engineer and the director of utilities, those public facilities and the police department, those public facilities and services are, and the fire department, are fully capable of accommodating the land uses that you find within the B3 district. So that's not an issue. And another standard that we look at, or the ordinance asks us to look at is, and I think we may have skipped, it's not working well tonight. No, let me go back. Whoa. Sorry about that, folks. That's where it was. Okay. It talks about, is the B3 district appropriate for this area? And staff, after reviewing the request, looking at the information obviously in more depth, and we're presenting it tonight, but we felt that based on the site's character, its location, its highway access, its development potential, and the character of surrounding development, we didn't feel that the rezoning would have a significant negative impact on surrounding zone districts, as well as land uses, and would be essentially very appropriate, very compatible with what's going on around it. So again, we felt that particular criteria was met. Your action tonight is one of making a recommendation. With zonings and rezonings, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the Cadillac City Council to approve or to essentially to deny. And obviously, the recommendation must be supported by findings of fact, the record that you prepare, the staff report that you've had available to you, the information that's presented tonight, and any other factual information that's applicable to the application. And again, staff went through, looked at the standards as well as other types of elements, such as, is it a spot zone, for example? And no, it's not, because there are other, even though it's in Clam Lake Township, there are other nearby classifications that are very consistent with this particular zoning designation. So again, yours is a recommendation. This will go to council. Council will hold another public hearing. We'll also notify property owners just like we did, and they will have the final say. Now, it is possible for the council to throw it back to you for more information or to have you rethink or relook at things, but typically they don't do that, provided, we do good enough of a job when we start out. So I think that's, let's see, that's it. Mr. Chair, I would recommend that when you open the public hearing, that perhaps you have Mr. DeKreiger go first, as he's representing the applicant, and he can, embellish, modify, change things that I've said, or he may want to add, and then perhaps open up the hearing for the rest of the audience if anybody wants to speak to it.
Sounds good. Quick question before we go. We're only dealing with the 80 acres, nothing outside of that?
We're only dealing with that 8.5 acres.
8.5?
About 8.5, right.
Not 80. Or did I get 80? I don't know.
Yeah, it's about 8.5, 8 to 8.5.
Okay, so nothing to the
The
east?
frontage parcel.
The east is still what?
East is still RM2, I believe.
Oh.
It has a PUD designation attached to it, which we've never officially removed, but the time has long passed. But it now has an RMH. I believe initially, in researching the records, the individual that originally owned this was looking at developing the frontage for commercial, mostly tourism related, and the back for multifamily residential, but again, it never materialized.
So we're only changing the zoning for the front 8 acres.
That's right. That's correct.
Okay, everybody ready? At this time, we'll open public hearing. And please come forward, state your name and address there for us, please.
All right, good evening. My name is Dean DeKreiger. I'm with the DK Design Group, 1104 South Mitchell, Cadillac, Michigan. Thank you for your time tonight. First of all, Jerry did a very thorough job covering a lot of what I think I was probably going to say. So thank you for that. Just a little bit about Reamer Real Estate Investments. Actually, that is Dr. Andy Reamer. He's got multiple buildings. We did the building for him in Manistee, which you may have seen, which has a similar kind of lighthouse theme. He also has a very nice facility in Ludington, where his main office is. He is an eye surgeon. He does a lot of LASIK, but he also has multiple doctors on staff. There will be a large retail part to this. He does a lot of eyeglasses and specialty eyewear. So there will be a retail component to this. This building will be approximately 11,000 square feet. Dr. Reamer selected this parcel after looking at multiple in the area for a couple reasons. One, he did want direct access onto Mitchell Street. He wanted the frontage. Also, at this point, we are looking at a building that will probably require fire suppression based on some of the requirements we have, and having municipal water is going to be very important to that. So obviously, as Jerry said, we have a parcel here that has not been developed. It's sat vacant for a number of years. I think Dr. Reamer is a very good candidate for developing this property. The use that he's got, he is talking about additional development on this 8.5 acres to the south. He's also talked about hopefully some multifamily housing on the rear, so I imagine we'll be coming to you again at some point if this goes through. So, are there any questions for me?
Did Doctor purchase this whole deal?
Yeah, he
Okay.
purchased the whole parcel.
Whole parcel.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. There was something in here on the water, sanitary sewer. They're saying you may have to grinder pumps or something?
Yeah, there is sewer on that side of the road, but I think it is going to be at such an elevation that we may need a grinder pump to get up to our nearest tie-in, but that's understood. It's part of the development cost. All right, thank you.
Anybody else, anything? Dean? We're good. Thank you, Dean. Anyone else here and wishing to speak in favor of the rezone? Okay. Anyone here to speak against the proposed rezoning? There being none, we'll close public hearing at this time, so the board here can discuss this. I don't have any problem.
Dean, did this gentleman that owns the one that's right across from the hospital,
Yes.
right? And it's going to be similar to that, you think,
No.
or?
Well, there are going to be, it's going to be the same quality. As you saw on the early rendering, there will be some sort of a vertical element to it. It'll probably be either a cultured stone masonry or brick. It will be all masonry on the exterior. There will be a covered drop-off for customers and patients. So it'll be similar, actually be a larger scale than the one in Manistee. I think they've got 16 exam rooms in this one.
Wow.
That looks very
I like
nice.
that.
I'm good.
I think it'll be a wonderful addition to our community.
So do I.
No complaints, okay. That's all good. Okay, then if we're all on the same page, then...
Motion we accept the change in the zoning.
Mr. Smith, followed by Van Lente,
For that 8.5 acres.
and we probably need something a little formal for Mr. Adams.
Okay, so the motion was to recommend approval of the zoning by Smith, make sure I get this right now, and then Van Lente was the support?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming that's going to be based on the information presented in the staff report, essentially the items that I referenced in the last slide that we did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let me go down through the roll then. Schichtel,
Yes.
Stent,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Filkins,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Van Lente,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Okay. This will now go to the city council as a recommendation for approval. And what we do, by the way, under the ordinance, we submit essentially a staff or a planning commission report to city council. Essentially, kind of like your packet, only we elaborate a little more on what happened tonight and so forth, and why you are recommending approval. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
That'd be really nice.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you. You always do good work, Dean. And let's see, where are we? New business. Aha. We have new business. We're not used to that. So apparently we're going to have a discussion on zoning of Annex Terry D LLC site generally located southeast of intersection of East Division / M55 and the US 131 freeway. Everyone, this is support document 5A, and I'm sure we'll have a picture on monitors for everyone in our audience. Okay. Mr. Adams will lead this discussion, I'm sure.
Sure. We have the folks from Terry D LLC here tonight. We have a row of them. And I'll let them introduce themselves to you, okay? This is not a public hearing tonight, by the way.
Yep.
And again, I just have a few slides for this one. I did give, for the benefit of the Planning Commission, they have this, only it's a little darker, so their copy basically shows a little more distinctly the areas that we're talking about. Doesn't show up too well here, but essentially it's most of the area that you're seeing from the heavy line all the way around. The area in through here is the area that has been annexed, and this is the area that we're going to be talking about essentially. I I know some of this is a little wordy, and I normally, I don't like to read all this stuff, but I think it's important that some of these slides I do need to read. What are we doing tonight and why are we doing this? If we look at the zoning ordinance section 46-137, and it specifically states that whenever any area is annexed to the city, land that is zoned previous to the annexation shall be classified as being whichever district of this chapter, that is the Cadillac zoning ordinance, and I underlined this part and highlighted it, most closely conforms with the zoning that existed prior to annexation, such classification to be recommended by the Planning Commission to the City Council. In this case, this property, which previously was in Clam Lake Township, again, fell under county zoning and did have a zoning classification attached to it. And so it meets the criteria, you might say, of Section 46-137. That is, it's up to you and ultimately the City Council then to say, okay, it was previously zoned. Now, based on our zoning ordinance, we have to attach a zoning, we have to keep it zoned, in other words. And we try to make sure that whatever classification you attach to it most closely resembled the way it was zoned. That doesn't mean that it ultimately can't be rezoned some other classification, because as you're going to see tonight, the classification that staff is recommending is an R1 single-family, one-family district classification, and you'll see this in a second. Obviously, if you've read the newspaper or if you've seen some of the other media press and some of the discussions that have been had over the number of months now, you know that there's a commercial development that's as well as housing combination that's being planned for the site. So I'm fairly certain that the applicants are going to be coming back in at some point in time seeking another classification, one that will allow them to put in the type of development or developments that they would like to see happen here. But for tonight, we're taking this first step, you might say. Okay. Again, just the site map. So how do we go about matching? How do we go about determining, okay, which of our classifications most closely resembles the forest recreational zoning that was attached to it? And what we tried to do was we tried to find a classification that most closely paralleled the forest recreational zoning, and we did that by essentially looking at the forest recreation, what it provided for in terms of land uses and in terms of the design standards, lot sizes, setbacks, things like that. We then went through our ordinance and said, okay, which one of our districts most closely resembles that forest recreational? And one of the things that was very critical for us was the range of permitted uses. Typically, when you have a zone district classification, and this is not always the case, but generally speaking, you have a zone district classification, you normally will have what are known as principal permitted uses, and you may have special land uses. The principal permitted uses, though, signal, they give you an indication of what the zone district is really all about, what it was primarily intended to be. The special land uses are, maybe these might fit. They're not necessarily inconsistent, but those are the ones that require the public hearing. They have to come before you so that you can make a determination of consistency. So we really pay a lot of attention to the permitted uses, and you'll see what I'm saying here in a second. What we found is, as we matched the ordinance, let me, sorry about this machine tonight, gosh. One of the things we found, or something that we found, I should say, was that generally speaking, that the permitted uses in the forest recreational district, they aligned really well with the permitted uses of our residential R1 through R4 districts. Again, you're going to see that in a second. We found also that about 40% of the range of conditional and special uses, the county ordinance has both conditional and special, so we kind of lump those together. About 40% of the conditional and special uses in the forest recreational matched those special uses in the city's R1 through R4 one-family districts. And then roughly 60% of those conditional and special uses provided for in the forest recreational are found in the city's commercial and industrial districts. Again, hopefully this will become a little clearer in a second. But we did this throughout. We also looked at district purposes, and essentially, let me read the county forest recreational. It's their forest recreational district says this district is for purposes of promoting the proper use of the county's resources and enjoyment of the natural features of the county while providing space for larger parcels, 10 acres plus, outdoor recreational facilities, forestry, and low-density residential development. And the city, the R1 through R4, the purpose of those residential districts are to provide an environment of predominantly low-density, one-family detached dwellings, along with other residentially related facilities. And, do those jive? Maybe a little bit, but we didn't find really any of the districts meshing well. I have a little note down there, italicized. Whereas in the county, in this particular district, they're looking for somewhat larger parcels for many of the uses. Although for homes, they will allow homes on about an acre. In the city's zoning ordinance, the last sentence there, the largest residential lot, we only require 12,500. So none of our districts require really lot sizes that come anywhere near what the county may require in most of the in most of the county area. And you can understand that we're a very urbanized community where it's much more rural in the out county area. If we look at the permitted uses, and as I mentioned, they really do convey a district's land use focus. Under the county, within the forest recreational district, single-family residential dwellings are permitted use, as they are in the city. Hobby farms are a permitted use. Farms are permitted use in the city. Tree farms, we don't really designate tree farms, but I guess we could say they're farms in the city. Public parks and playgrounds. Public parks and playgrounds are permitted in the R1 through R4 in the city. And the city also provides for home occupations as a permitted use. So there's a lot of consistency, in fact, probably the most consistency among districts between the forest recreational and what we find in the city's zoning ordinance. So again, it leads us to maybe the proper zoning of this site is some form of residential. We looked at the county's conditional use classification. Again, they have what are called conditional use, a few conditional uses and some special uses. Just like here, the special uses are subject to review and approval in a public hearing by the Planning Commission. In the county ordinance, their conditional uses only require zoning administrator approval, but they have to meet certain conditions, additional conditions. So in the forest recreational, they provide for mini cabins and cottages, whereas in the city you'd have to go to a TS or a commercial classification to find those. Conditional uses, residential accessory buildings, we tend to permit those by right in ours. Gasoline stations, convenience stores, again, in the city you'd have to go to a commercial district. And they do allow multiple dwellings on a parcel depending on certain factors. And again, in our ordinance, you'd have to go to multiple family or tourist service. So there's some variations there. And this is going to be hard to read, I realize. What about special land uses? Is there some consistency between the way it was zoned and what we're looking at here? In terms of special uses, their particular forest recreational district, churches are listed as a special land use, as it is in the city. Campgrounds, cabin resorts, we call it private recreational facilities. Group daycare is a special land use in the county. It's a special land use in the city. Boat, canoe liveries, we really don't have a lot of that, but we would call them private recreational facilities. Home occupations, special land use in the county, we permit it by right. So there's a variation there, but we do allow them. Outdoor recreation, and again, we provide a range of recreational opportunities in our residential district. Public buildings, we provide for public buildings such as utility storage yards. Riding and boarding stables, well, we don't have any, but we do. Our ordinance does allow for the keeping of animals, provided you can get city council approval, okay? And so, I'm not sure we'll have a riding or boarding stable, although I suppose we have one farm in the city, so it might be possible. So again, even with special land uses, there is some consistency. Where we lack consistency is some other uses that they permitted, I should say, that we wouldn't permit in our residential districts. Motels, lodging, restaurants, retail stores, kennels, landing strips, greenhouses, nurseries, sawmills, mining and processing. We would require those to go in other districts. In terms of staff is making a recommendation, we recommend, and we did the same thing, by the way, in looking at all of the other districts as well. I'm just summarizing. We feel that the site, your recommendation should be to classify at this stage of the game as R1, one family residential district. We base it on the following. The range of, again, permitted R1 district uses most closely matches the range of uses classified as permitted under the Forest Recreation District. I think that's extremely important. As mentioned, under zoning, the types of uses permitted by right in a district conveys that district's land use focus or land use intent. Got a number of, why are we recommending this? We did find that roughly 40%, in addition to the permitted uses, roughly 40% of the range of conditional and special uses that were provided for by the Forest Recreational, they do more or less match the range of special uses by the city's R1, really it's R1 through R4 zone district, but we're suggesting that it just be R1. And even though it's not 100%, 40% is not insignificant. Also, we found that although a majority of the property, that large area, is undeveloped, there are several, two in particular, small linear rows of existing single-family. In fact, single-family development, if you throw out the undeveloped portion, the primary land use right now, probably won't be that way in the future, but right now is single-family. So, presently exists on the south side of M55 and near the west side of Crosby Road. So again, consistent with our residential classification. Also, in terms of why R1, of the 4 residential districts, even though the lots are still small, relatively small compared to the county, it requires the greatest lot size. So before, the minimum residential lot size in the Forest Recreational essentially is an acre. We require a little over a third, a little less, or quite a bit less than that. But nonetheless, it is the largest. It does require the largest lot size of all of our residential districts. So again, it most closely, of any that matched, it most closely matched. Also, the site is not presently served with municipal utilities. It will eventually. It doesn't have water, it doesn't have sanitary sewers right now. And so this can be a real limiting factor in terms of promoting higher density residential uses and to many other forms of commercial industrial development. Essentially, if you look at our ordinance, look at the commercial districts, for example, and industrial districts, if we were to attach one of those, many of those uses do require public infrastructure. Dean, in fact, talked about it tonight with respect to their site. The site doesn't have infrastructure right now. It will, or it's planned. So, but again, right now it doesn't. So again, it kind of leans us back to that residential. I think that's it. We're recommending that you recommend to City Council that the R1 one family residential district, zone district classification be attached to this site, this annexed property. It will be up to the City Council to make a determination as to whether they wish to do so. But again, most likely, and these folks that are here tonight, again, it's not a public hearing, but you may want to allow them to speak. You're going to see this again, okay? But it's going to be a lot different. So, John, I would suggest, John, that, Mr. Cucci or Mr. Vanderwall, one of them, or whoever you want, maybe one of them, they are the developers, they represent Terry D., and they might want to add something.
Jim has been our spokesperson all along.
Okay.
That's not changing tonight.
He doesn't look too thrilled yet, though.
I didn't come prepared. Good evening. My name is Jim Vanderlaan from Terry D. LLC, and with me tonight is my partner John Cucci, his wife Dee, and my wife Terry. So that's where the Terry D. name comes from. Is from our respective, better halves. Jerry has laid it out. We're just glad to be looking forward to working with the city and with our development. This has been a long journey for us, and just really excited about it. So there's not a whole lot I can add to it tonight, but you'll be seeing.
We'll be seeing you. Okay. All righty.
Oh, we also have our realtor, Tom Taylor, with us tonight, too, so which we're glad to have.
Last but not least.
I didn't mean to overlook you, Tom, I'm sorry.
Anybody have any questions for Jim, just for the heck of it? Yes? No? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you need us just to have a recommendation then, sir?
Yeah,
for
we
city
need a
council?
motion support to make a recommendation to the city council regarding the rezoning, or the attachment, not the rezoning, I'm sorry, the attachment of a zoning classification. And if you wouldn't mind doing it, you can either, take the factors that I mentioned, you can add to them, you can take away, whatever you like, but we do need to provide them, the city council, with the reasons or the rationale for what we're doing.
Doesn't that kind of go along with, as far as what the city's master plan was, going that far east, wasn't that kind of, sort of?
At this point, right.
Granted, it's beyond
It's
it.
going to change, but,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to pose a question. Have we considered tourist service as a possible zoning? And it seems to me that tourist service and forest recreational have a kindred sound to it. And I just, to make up my own mind, I think I need to...
May I, Joe? They do have a kindred sound, but they don't have the same types of land uses. So pay no attention to titles, okay? We had to look at the uses that were permitted. What was the primary function of this district as it was previously zoned? And it was residential, okay? Again, other uses would have been permitted as a special land use, but the primary focus was very in sync with residential. So all we're doing right now is attaching a zone district classification so this piece of property doesn't wander out there with no zoning attached to it, and you cannot look at titles. If we were going to attach a commercial classification, they would have come in right away with, well, we want this property zoned as follows. Basically, we have so much time. We're doing this to satisfy the zoning ordinance. And so pay no attention to titles.
This is step one.
Did that help?
Good with that, Joe? Other things will change down the road. Right now, it's...
To me, it's just a lot of consideration to digest on the spur of the moment.
Yeah, I fully understand it. I do. It does, tourist service, forest recreational, it sounds like, well, boy, this ought to be a perfect match. But essentially, the tourist service, for example, doesn't provide for residential. Okay? And forest recreational, you go to the intent as well as the list of principal permitted uses, single-family residential pops right out. So you can't pay attention, you can't use titles for what we're doing tonight. You really can't. Yeah.
So we're obligated to just, if I understand, to attach a zoning to it that fits what it was zoned prior to.
That's correct. And the...
Closest possible.
Right, and, you know, we have no district, there isn't a single city zone district that perfectly matches the counties, okay? Or that perfectly matches forest recreational, I mean. But we have to find the one that comes the closest at this stage of the game.
Knowing that full well in the future, we're gonna be back here.
They'll be back, sure. Mm-hmm. It's just, because this property has come into the city, essentially it has no zoning classification attached to it. It's an unzoned piece of property. And so what the ordinance is trying to do is to say, okay, look, we need to remedy that right away. We need to take care of that. And so instead of belaboring the issue, so to speak, let's find the closest one we can, and let's attach that to it. And although the ordinance doesn't say this, obviously, and particularly when you have land that's being annexed into a community, most likely there's going to be a change at some point in time. Maybe not. You know, and there's no guarantee that the property will get rezoned. I want to make sure that I don't want you to walk away thinking, well, you know, it's just guaranteed. Zoning is not. I can't guarantee that if these folks come back at some point in the future and say, look, we'd like to have this zone B3, RM2, whatever, that, you know, the city's going to do it. But I'm fairly certain you're going to see them coming back. It's going to be a much more lengthy process as well. You have to go through the public hearings and so forth. Right now, we're just remedying what needs to be remedied. That is, we need to attach a classification, and the ordinance says you need to make it as close as possible to the way it was previously zoned. I mean, if you think about it, if you were a homeowner, let's say, living in that district, and before, you felt safe and secure in knowing that, okay, it's zoned, it has a residential classification, or the district has a residential intent, you know, you wouldn't want us putting an industrial or a heavy commercial necessarily at this stage.
No, I get it. I understand.
Okay.
I make a motion that we zone this parcel R1 based on Jerry's discussion.
Staff report. Anybody second?
Support.
Support. Roll call, please.
Okay. It was moved by Peterson, supported by Filkins, to recommend to the Cadillac City Council that the R1 classification be assigned to this, to the annex site, based on the information, the findings that were presented in the staff report. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Peterson?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Schichtel?
Yes.
Fent?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Gregg?
Yes.
Filkins?
Yes.
Putman?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Great.
One more item.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Again, this will go to the city council at their next regular meeting, which is
November 17th.
November 17th. Okay, that's right. But the one for the 3rd is being skipped, right?
It is because of the election.
You folks are more than happy to sit here and let us talk about the new sign for the library, or you may leave. I'll give you a good choice.
We got 100 miles to go, so...
Okay. Okay.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Drive safe.
Being here.
Thank you all.
I got one question, I don't know.
Sure.
I remember the property probably as long as any of you may I remember it the longest. But as a little boy, I remember riding by the property, and you know what it was used for 70, 75 years ago, do you guys know? You might. A piggery. Remember that?
I wasn't living here at that
That was
time.
when they were picking up garbage in Cadillac with stake trucks, throwing it up over the rack of the stake trucks and into barrels, and bringing it to the piggery, which I think was on, or very close to the back end of our property, you could see the pig pens from 55.
I can smell
And
them.
I was a little boy about that pig riding in my
Somebody was
car.
saying
I remember seeing the peg roll.
How we
I was kind of thrown at you.
Oh, I gotcha,
And
okay.
I thank
Our one would be a better use.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
John. Thanks for that history.
Yes.
What's the figure?
Thanks. I-
I didn't know we raised pigs over there. Well, before me. Okay. New business, so 5B, we have a new sign for the library, Mr. Adams.
Right, I think it's probably been, I don't know, about a week ago or so, we knew this was in the works, but the library is located in a B1 zone district, and in the B1 and the B2, pole signs, monument signs require planning commission review and approval. So since there wasn't a public hearing required for this, and we knew that, the next meeting would be about a month away, we let the library folks know that, we'd try to get them on tonight, so thank you for allowing that, and I believe the sign designer is here tonight, so, and again, this was even shorter than the last one, so here's his graphic representation of the sign, and let's see. As mentioned, pole signs in the B1 zone district are prohibited except when approved by you folks, by the Planning Commission, and what the ordinance says is that you can approve the signs if you find them to be essentially what they call like a decorative monument sign, essentially that it blends, it works well with the district. And the ordinance considers a monument sign really a form of a pole sign. I don't, but it does. So, and again, we're looking at two approval standards. Is it decorative? Does it look professional, so to speak? Does it fit? Does it blend with the district? Does it work with the district, as well as with the building and site to which it's going to be attached? In terms of the location of the sign, let me stand up here. Lake Street, which will get repaved, by the way, eventually. Before you ask.
Excellent.
Lake Street, and here's West Chapin Street. Right across the way is a parking lot where we have the farm market, just to kind of acquaint you. Here's the library building, so to speak. There's a light pole right at the corner on the library property. The sign will be behind that, so to speak. It's this little blue figure right here. And the sign does not encroach in any sort of clear vision area. That's what some of this is all about. So it's set back well. In fact, it's marked on the site right now. If you were to go out there, I realize you didn't know this, but the sign location is marked. In terms of blending with the district, staff felt that it is consistent with nearby signs, and in this case, we had to go somewhat distant because there really aren't a lot of nearby signs. But you have the condominiums across the street, again, a very attractive sign. You have the new sign, for example, that was recently put up by the Chamber of Commerce. You have some office signs around, so it really is very consistent with what's happening in that area. We felt that was visually consistent with the library building. Obviously, it's been designed to match with the character of that building. It has what we call a pedestrian-friendly height, pedestrian-height-friendly. That is, it's going to be about, according to this, 5 feet 9 inches. So somebody walking, it's not as though they're looking up like a pole sign. It's consistent with what we would want to see with a monument sign, and raised a little bit above the ground level because, as you know, we get a little bit of snow once in a while. It does, we believe, exhibit a professional office character, and it's not obtrusive at all. At least staff didn't find it obtrusive. Staff recommendation is to approve the sign, and this stays with you, by the way. This does not have to go to council. Approve the sign based on the findings that the design is visually consistent with the library building and site, is pedestrian height friendly, exhibits a professional office character, and is not obtrusive to the site and general area. And I believe that is it. Again, the gentleman that designed the sign is here if you have any questions, but If not, what we're looking for is a recommendation to approve the monument sign, or if you so decide to not approve it, and again, based on findings. If it's for approval, you may wish to use the staff's findings as your part of your recommendation.
The light pole that you're showing, that's a city light?
That's on their property. I believe it's on the library property, I think. Yeah. It's a decorative pedestrian type of pole.
So that's the extent of lighting, it'll just be, yeah.
Yeah, it's not internally lit or anything.
Okay. Do they have a sign now?
Not there.
How much I go there?
No.
They have one on their building.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
We've actually had people come to the city offices asking us where the library is. Yeah.
Well, it's no different than the one we just allowed next door.
Right,
so.
that's right, Ken.
Yeah. Well, looks nice. I know Eric does good work.
I'd make a motion to let them go ahead and do it. Sign in there as planned here.
Based on all the good things Jerry mentioned and stuff, okay?
As long as it doesn't move from where the location is on here.
Good. Do we have a second?
A second.
Mr. Schichtel, second.
Okay, motion by Van Linty, supported by Schichtel, to approve the Cadillac Library monument sign as presented, based on the findings as presented in the staff report.
Yes, sir.
Gregg?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Fint?
Yes.
Filkins?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Schichtel?
Yes.
Van Linty?
Yes.
And Putman?
Yes.
Okay, approved. And that's all the business I have, sir.
Excellent. Okay, old business being none, tabled items none. Board member comments. Everybody's got their trick-or-treat candy, right?
Buffalo Vikings.
Awesome. They did very well.
I'd like to say thank you to the city for changing the power sign on my corner to read Powers Street, and they're consistent all the way from Mitchell Street to the road.
No, we tried to, when you brought that to our attention, we tried to take a...
Did they just add an S to it? Just go up with a pink?
No, it was brand new, whole brand new, all the way through.
All right. Yeah.
No,
I went to the ribbon.
So you're gonna enlighten everybody on the ribbons.
Yeah, I went to the ribbon cutting today for the new playground on the lakeside, and it's absolutely beautiful. So the leadership class hit it out of the park with that project. So.
I was over there Saturday, and there were probably 15 or 20 kids, and probably about a half a dozen adults. The adults were all on the brides and stuff. The adults were using...
We went on them today.
Yeah, it was funny they were having a ball.
Quality check.
There.
Yeah, it was fun.
Is there gonna be a fence around that at one point?
There's going to be a fence between the playground and the street, a partial fence, so to speak, because the concern is, little kids...
Take off.
Taking off and not,
Kira was saying today that actually they've talked about wrapping the fence back around to the sidewalk, so, the parents at least have an opportunity to catch them as they, the littlest ones, if they get away.
They can get away quick.
Yeah, that's true. They do.
Okay. Any public comments from anyone? No? Okay. Guess there being nothing and nothing, we'll adjourn. Thank you.